And I will share my screen. There we are.
Yes.
And hopefully it pops up nicely in presenter mode now.
That looks quite correct.
Good, excellent. So in the beginning of this set of sessions, Jacques Conan talked somewhat about the ITOM portfolio, the diamond that we have there, and he referenced the IT4IT framework as a backdrop for how we evolved the ITOM portfolio, and actually a lot of our portfolios within Micro Focus. And so what I'll use the next 20 minutes on is to explain a little bit about how it came about, what it is about, but also very importantly, how this framework really allows you to drive agility. As a side note, I'm leading the effort of creating the IT4IT standardization or standard, as well as leading the board of the Open Group, which is the standard organization we now are using. But IT4IT actually came about all the way back in 2008, where we created the first version of an architecture, a generic architecture that wasn't tied to any specific product, wasn't tied to Hewlett Packard at that time in particular, but which focused on creating smarter, more predictive service operation. And in particular, it led to the solution that we call closed loop incident problem management, CLIP, which essentially is a value stream that finds all the various processes that needs to work together in order to deliver the interactions between the development, the change management, the event management, and the incident management. Not waterfallish, but really continuously improving what is going on. We didn't use the word continuous at that time. We didn't use the word agile at that time because, well, that wasn't buzzword that was used in the novels, but it was nevertheless really what we were doing. And then we decided, well, we really wanted to take this work and some other work we were doing into something that could really be used by the entire industry. We formed a consortium. We went together with various other companies, and we created the early versions of IT4IT, where in particular we introduced the concept of value stream thinking, which is a concept. Value chains and value streams is something that comes from the manufacturing industry originally. It's a very business-oriented way of looking at it, which was quite revolutionary in IT at that time. At about 2013 was when we introduced this. We kept iterating over it, and about 2015, 5 years ago, we introduced the first approved version of the standard. Did some updates. The current version that is fully released is 2.1, came out a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. But there's a lot of companies that are now working with the standard. It's not only Micro Focus, not at all. A lot of our competitors, a lot of our customers, a lot of our partners are using the standard as such. And it is an open standard. Anybody can join the Open Group and follow and influence the work of the standard. We want to point out that when we talk about agility and agile development, SAFe is one of the leading frameworks for doing that. So how is IT4IT and SAFe relating? Well, it actually is relating in many ways. SAFe introduces a number of methods you need to implement. IT4IT define the architecture you need to put underneath SAFe if you want to implement SAFe, but it can be used for other frameworks as well. And interestingly enough, SAFe introduced the concept of value streams in 2018 in the version 4, if my memory is correct here. So some years after we originally introduced it, and so, but in all credit to SAFe, they also looked more detailed on how could you use this value stream thinking in order to move the business of IT forward. But it very much went hand in hand with what we're doing in IT4IT. But the story continues, of course, and so we are just in the final frankly rounds of wrapping up version 3.0. It'll be released first as a snapshot, probably here in January. And then a fully wrapped up standard 3 months later, approximately. We also recently published a digital product white paper. So the shift from project to product is what it's all about. And again, we in Micro Focus is pretty proud that we have contributed quite a lot to this. We contributed a cloud reference architecture that directed some of it, and then we contributed some new value stream thinking. So we upgraded the value stream thinking that was in the original IT4IT into something that is more visible as being this continuous interactive set of ways of working with IT to really make it agile. We actually also changed the way we manage the standard itself to be much more using a standard software development doc chain, AsciiDoc and Git based, etc. So we are applying our own medicine within the standard. And so that is also reflected the other way around. So we are active as Micro Focus also in the SAFe community, and we've actually published a paper in around how to create an agile factory, essentially based on IT4IT, in how to implement SAFe. So it goes both ways. So some people are occasionally asking the question, why should I care about IT4IT? Because it looks a little bit old-fashioned. It's plan, build, deliver, run. It looks like a waterfall thing, which is a misunderstanding. It's not waterfallish. Why should I care about it? I want to go to SAFe. Well, they truly fully complement each other. And IT4IT in many ways tells you what do you need to put in place in terms of tooling and integrations in order to be able to really deliver agility. And so if we think about it from another set of lenses and more outside in, saying, well, unfortunately, the world is getting more and more complex. It is pretty simple. If you are a greenfield organization, you need to develop a new product that can do something, right? Whatever. And you put down an agile team or a teams of teams to develop it. You set up your CI/CD pipeline using, say, whatever Jenkins tooling. You have a Git repository, and you use an Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud set up to have compute and database and platform resources available, and you can iterate based on that. But the reality is that most organization lives in an environment that is much more complicated. It's not greenfield, and every day it's actually only becoming worse, not better. So how do you deal with that? And parts of that environment is not controlled by yourself. Part of this environment is not really being maintained actively by an agile team. It's much more waterfield-ish in nature, or maybe it's only in maintenance mode, so there is no active development, but it's still part of the integrated landscape that you need to manage. How do you deal with that? And this is where we in Micro Focus keenly believe that agility is not just about the application delivery. Put up a safe development environment for your developers, and you're agile and you're happy. No, it is true that you need to accelerate how you deliver your application. That is an important part of delivering a modern digital enterprise, or running a factory, a digital factory for your enterprise. But you also need to simplify your IT transformation itself. So simplify how you consume compute resources and platform resources. Simplify how you monitor these kind of resources. Can you standardize that in some way, so that what we saw in the previous picture is actually getting into an environment where all of this is managed in a way that is simple to consume, right? So that you don't need to be experts and find experts in order to use your information technologies. And then it needs to be complemented with the other two parts of this slide here, is that the cyber resilience, and we just had a presentation about what does cyber resilience really means, right? But part of that is that you embed resilience everywhere in what you're doing. And finally, on the lower right-hand corner of this slide is the analyze in time to act. what you deliver and the way it's all connected, you need to be able to understand what is going on. And when I say that is that in many organizations, the delivery, the planning, the building, the delivery, and the running of information technology is done in many, many silos. And that makes it very difficult to really analyze what is going on. Do you have the end-to-end understanding of the digital products that you're delivering? And you need that information because today, unlike yesterday, your IT, your digital environment is actually your business, right? It's no longer a matter of you have an SAP system and an email system that helps you have productivity gains. No, you're actually delivering to your real customers or your clients or whatever is your user base, real business value with your information technology. So you need to understand what is going on. So basically what we see in this picture here is no longer a matter of being agile within the classical IT organization. It's a matter of being agile as a business. It implies that the digital product officer needs to work with the CIO, that needs to work with the CISO, that needs to work with the CEO and CFO and COO, because all of these officers of the company need to accelerate, simplify, be cyber resilient, and actually understand what goes on. So that's what you need to do. Simple, right? And that's what then comes in with IT4IT, because IT4IT really delivers that unifying architecture that allows you to create this factory for the digital enterprise, where you can accelerate, simplify, secure, and analyze what is going on. And the picture you see here is, strictly speaking, not the IT4IT picture, but it's close to what is coming out with version 3 of the standard. The Open Group have rules that if you're not a member, you cannot get access to pre-releases of the standard. But fortunately, this is our contribution into the standard, so I can talk about it because this is the Micro Focus way. In a month or so, you can get the official IT4IT standard. You will recognize a lot of these value streams, the blue arrows. Some people call it use cases, but really it is the value streams that we are talking about here. And so what you can then do is that you can analyze these value streams in this architecture and say which one of the value streams are essential to optimize in order to accelerate application delivery. And that's something about continuous planning, continuous exploration, continuous deployment, and continuous feedback. Those 4 value streams are essential for accelerating application delivery. It works on top of a set of functional areas. The functional areas is what, in the first presentation today from Jacques, around, for instance, what is going on around consumption and support and operations and fulfillment and assurance. So the diamond in that space, if it's on the left-hand side of the architecture, it's more coming from the Micro Focus ADM portfolio. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. When it comes to simplify, it's a lot around delivery and running what you have. And that is really where this diamond that Jacques talked about is about. How do you implement those essential value streams in your operation setup? And there's some overlap. The continuous deployment that comes from accelerating your application delivery needs to be integrated in how you are then consuming, delivering, and running IT, obviously. When it comes to securing what matters most, that is the cyber resilience. Again, it's not something you bolt on at the end or you have a separate department doing security. That is the old-fashioned way of saying, okay, let's put up a Chinese wall around the entire organization, then you're safe, right? No, that doesn't work any longer that way. But you can start looking at each of these value streams and say, well, how do you build in security into it? So for instance, the continuous integration that develops the next features of your applications, your products, your digital products. Can you embed checks and balances? Can you on who is developing it, so that not a single person can introduce an error, a backdoor, like what happened with the SolarWind attack that was prominently in the press over the last couple of weeks. Can you ensure that every source code is being checked by, say, Fortify as a security scanner? as part of the loop of continuous integrating, so that you upfront are aware, all the programmers are aware, and you've done that shift left, as it's called, towards not checking for security issues with an application at release time, but doing it whenever you code a line of code. In Micro Focus ourselves, we have 5,000 developers, and we scan 20,000 lines, 20 million lines of code every night. And all the things we discover is immediately fed back to the backlog of the developers that introduce potentially security breaches. So very, very upfront, shift left, active security in there. But a number of the other value streams need to have built-in security as well. And then finally, each of these value streams, each of these integrations, each of these sets of products, they deliver material that you can analyze in order to be better at acting. Again, going back to the first presentation, Jacques talked about how we are using a number of methods within our SMAX, HCM, and Upsbridge solutions to analyze what is going on and be proactive. So that is in the continuous operations loop. But it happens across the entire architecture, across the entire landscape, and actually connecting all of that together. So that's what we're doing with our reference architecture. And if I blow it up, you have it in slightly larger form here. Again, in the first presentation, you also saw a glimpse of this figure. So it's pretty essential for the way we in Micro Focus believe that you should implement a factory, a digital factory for your enterprise. Everything I've talked about here is generic, right? It's not tied to Micro Focus. It can be implemented using any vendor's tools. But the good thing is, because we believe strongly in the concept of an open composable architecture, the vendor login that some of our competitors would really like you to get into is problematic, because there is no vendor that are perfect in every category here. We are proud that in Micro Focus, we can actually deliver in all of the categories there, but we don't expect every customer to be Micro Focus only. And so having that generic architecture that you can line up the best products in the right categories, that best for your given organization and your history, is really a key thing of the IT4IT framework and this end-to-end architecture. But if you stay with Micro Focus, we know how to tie it together. So this is an example, not all the products in our portfolio, but some of the key ones that would help you implement this. And I talked about in the continuous integrate loop with the ALM Octane at the center, but you have UFT and Stormrunner and Load, and you have Fortify that can integrate into it. Jacques talked about service management automation version X, how it integrate with hybrid cloud management, data center automation, and operations bridge. But there's also the more specialized products around network operations. There is the underpinning UCMDB that ties it together. And then you can complement it on the security side at the operations end of this picture with the ArcSight portfolio. And so that in total really delivers the end-to-end architecture. And this, if you implement it as pictured here, with a few more things that we could deep dive into, then you essentially have what you need in order to have a digital factory where you can truly control your hybrid setup, that complicated blue landscape I painted in the beginning. And so with that, I'll say thank you. And with the very high level 20 minutes overview on what is IT4IT, it can deliver agility. It is really around accelerating, simplifying, securing, and analyzing what is going on in your digital factory. Thank you. Back to you, Rolf.